GoForThe2.com. We're into week number 9 of the college football season. We have a very interesting matchup on Friday night between the Boise State Broncos and the BYU Cougars. It's a Friday night matchup. Both teams are 5-2. I'm going to get into some news and notes about each club in a couple of seconds. I just want to remind everybody, this coming Friday, blogtalkradio.com, the NCAA Weekly Blitz Show, my co-host, former Georgia Bulldog wide receiver Corey Allen, we're going to talk about the key matchup within the SEC East this weekend between the South Carolina Gamecocks and the undefeated Missouri Tigers. You have to check it out. It has huge implications within the SEC East this weekend. We're going to talk about it this coming Friday. blogtalkradio.com, the NCAA Weekly Blitz Show. Check it out. Let's talk about Boise State and BYU right now. Keynote for Boise State. Starting quarterback Joe Southwick was injured last week in the game against Nevada. He broke his ankle. He will not play in this ball game. Grant Hendrick came in. He's a junior, performed very well, and Boise State was able to pick up a 17-point victory against Nevada. When you look at Boise State offensively, averaging 39.9 points per game, they're averaging over 270 yards passing per game and over 220 rushing yards per game. They're going to want to try and throw the football against a very suspect BYU Cougar secondary that was burned for over 400 yards last week against Houston. BYU, though, picked up a very gutty 47-46 victory against the undefeated Houston Cougars last week. It was a very tough matchup, but BYU gutted it out. They came back late in that ball game. They had a very good offensive effort last week. That's going to be the matchup. Boise State's vertical passing game matching up with the secondary of BYU. We're going to see how it plays out. When you look at BYU, Taysom Hill, the quarterback, he burns people with his legs. He's leading the team in rushing, 772 yards on the year. He's averaging 6.2 yards per carry. He has 7 touchdowns on the ground, 9 touchdowns through the air. Last week, though, against Houston, he was able to air it out for over 480 yards of passing offense. BYU accounted for over 680 yards of offense last week in Houston. They outgained Houston in terms of first downs 41-23. They had some key turnovers in that ball game. That's why it was so close. But BYU's offense did get going last week on the road against Houston. They are home this week, so keep that in mind. When you look at last year's matchup, it was a very close ball game. Boise State won 7-6. Taysom Hill came in relief. He did get the lone score for BYU in that matchup on the road. They opted to go for 2. They did not get it. So BYU is very familiar with Boise State. They now have to travel, the Broncos do, to Provo this Friday. So keep that in mind. When you look at BYU's defensively, not that opportunistic in terms of turnover margin. They're -3, so they're going to have to create turnovers against a very solid Boise State offense. When you look at Boise State as a whole, they lost their 2 tough ball games this year on the road, opening week against Washington and then middle of the year against Fresno State, 41-40. The rest of their 5 victories have come against opponents with a combined record of 12-23. So not a very good resume for the Boise State Broncos in terms of the competition outside their 2 losses. So you have to keep that in mind heading up into this matchup with BYU. BYU is battle-tested. They have a very good, solid defensive line that's going to put pressure on Hendrick and the offensive line for Boise State. We're going to see how it plays out. If you do have one cause of concern for BYU, it's on the offensive line. They have surrendered 22 sacks on the year. That's a negative heading up into this matchup with Boise State. If Boise State can get some pressure on Taysom Hill, it could be a long day. Stay tuned for the preview, the prediction for this ball game this coming Thursday up on my website, GoForThe2.com. Should be a very interesting matchup, so stay with me all season long.